Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to welcome you at the National Gender Workshop for Green Transition. My name is Alexandra Shian, analyst within the EBRD SME Finance and Development Group in Moldova, and I will be moderating today's event. Before we start, I would like everyone to kindly make sure that you have access to convenient translation, which is provided in Romanian, Russian, and English. Doamnelor și domnilor, înainte de a începe, vreau să mă asigur că toată lumea are acces la traducere în limba în care le este comod să comunice și să audieze evenimentul. În partea de jos a ecranului aveți o siglă a globului. Vă rog să selectați de acolo limba în care veți audia workshопul. Дамы и господа, для того, чтобы вам было удобно слушать сегодняшнее мероприятие, я вас прошу выбрать значок глобуса в нижней части экрана и, открыв его, нажав на него, выбрать русский язык для прослушивания, для того, чтобы было обеспечено вам удобный перевод. May you have any questions? Please make sure to post them in the Q&A box, and we will make sure to address them during the Q&A session by the end of today's workshop. Or we could address your questions and messages later after the event. For that purpose, please make sure your contact details are added to the question. Today's event is performed in the framework of the Green Economy Funding Facility in Moldova, a program developed by the EBRD with the support of our donors, Green Climate Fund, Ministry of Treasury and Finance of Turkey, and the Government of Sweden. Please note that the event is being recorded as well as broadcasted on Facebook and GEFF Facebook pages of GEFF Moldova and EBRD Advice for Small Business. To the National Gender Workshop for Green Transition, I would like to pass the floor to Ms. Angela Sachs, EBRD Head of Moldova. Ms. Sachs, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alexandra. Thank you. Can you hear me well?
We do.
Good. Good morning, dear participants, esteemed guests, speakers, and of course, EBRD clients and partners. I'm absolutely delighted to open today's National Gender Workshop for Green Transition as part of our GEFF in Moldova. GEFF is what we call Green Economy Finance Facility in short. This is the first and only gender-responsive green on-lending facility in the country, which focuses on the enhancement of women's full participation in the national green transition. I would like to thank our participating financial institutions, without whom this facility would not be operational. I would also like to thank our donors who have provided the funds for the technical assistance, most notably the Green Climate Fund, but also the Ministry of Treasury and Finance of the Republic of Turkey and the Government of Sweden. Promoting equality of opportunity and increasing access to green finance is a priority under the EBRD strategy for promotion of gender equality. For example, only 55% of working age women in the EBRD regions are active in the labor force. In some EBRD countries, only just over a third of early stage entrepreneurial activities are performed by women. Hello? Okay. In Moldova, women represent half of the labor force. However, the labor force participation rate remains lower than the EU averages. To provide women with the knowledge and confidence to expand their businesses, the EBRD has launched Women in Business programs in 24 countries, including Moldova, taking advantage of synergies with financial institutions and business consulting companies. EBRD Women in Business program in Moldova is implemented. Is there a background noise or is it? Alexandra, shall I continue or? Okay, I think the background.
Please do, Angela. I think that noise comes from the interpretation.
Okay, understood. I thought there was probably a question. All right, thank you very much. So I'll go back to our Women in Business program in Moldova, which is implemented since 2011 with generous support from Sweden and has a special focus on improvement of knowledge and entrepreneurial skills combined with access to finance, including green economy finance. EBRD Women in Business program is perfectly matched with our GEFF Green Economy Finance Facility, helping local businesses to invest in high-performing technologies and aiming for inclusion as well. The invasion of Ukraine by Russia has raised the urgency of accelerating the transition away from dependency on fossil fuel. Fast-tracking inclusive energy efficiency and renewable energy deployment in the short term are vital. The development of renewable energy sources offered by GEFF Moldova has the potential to increase the country's overall resilience and promote inclusion. In a context of already high inflation, the refugee crisis that was sparked by the war on neighboring Ukraine has had unprecedented social and economic consequences for Moldova's economy, straining basic services, reducing trade and investment, increasing pressure on scarce natural resources, and at times jeopardizing the country's stability and development prospects. The preservation and generation of livelihoods is a critical challenge, made more difficult by declining economic prospects across the region. Preserving human capital and ensuring people continue to have access to economic opportunities and can support their livelihoods is a priority in this context. And tackling these challenges can help not only towards building more stable and cohesive societies, but it can also enable EBRD clients to boost innovation and inclusive growth for a more sustainable and inclusive future. The new Equality of Opportunity strategy and the strategy for the promotion of gender equality constitute one of the bank's key strategic priorities for the next 4 years. They set out the specific actions that we will take across our regions, including Moldova. We know about women's particular vulnerability to climate change, their limited access to environmental services, and negligible participation in decision-making. But at the same time, women have the potential to be agents of change towards a greener economy. And today, we will hear about the actions we can take to enhance women as change makers in the green economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Angela, for opening the workshop and for very well introducing the scope of the event, including the study leading to the baseline assessment that is going to be presented today. Let us now introduce one of our donors, the longtime partner and supporter of green transition activity. It's Turkey. I would like to invite Ms. Özlem Okuyucu, Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy of Turkey in Moldova. Ms. Okuyucu.
Thank you very much. Honorable colleagues and distinguished participants, I'm very pleased to participate in this workshop during which the results of the gender baseline assessment will be presented. Last year in April, I had also attended the event marking the launch of EBRD's Green Economy Financing Facility program in Moldova. Since it is implemented in Turkey as well, I am well aware of the success and efficiency of this program. It's noteworthy to see that in Moldova, this program is producing successful outcomes thanks to the devoted efforts of the EBRD team and Moldovan authorities. I wish the continuation of their success in the forthcoming period. Sharing deep-rooted historical and cultural ties, Moldova is a close friend of Turkey. The Declaration of Strategic Partnership in 2018 contributed to the further development of our relations. This year, we mark the 30th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between Turkey and Moldova, which we regard as our neighbor despite the lack of a common border. Our excellent political relations are also reflected in economic relations as well. Now, Turkey is the second biggest economic and trading partner of Moldova in terms of its exports. Our bilateral trade volume increased from $559.9 million in 2020 to $857.6 million in 2021. It seems that we will reach our common goal of $1 billion trade volume quite soon. The investments made by Turkish business people in Moldova are about 300 million USD. We would like to see more investments in Moldova. Our development assistance to Moldova through Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency, known as TICA, so far has reached 40 million USD. But taking into account the development assistance delivered by other Turkish institutions such as municipalities and other ministries, this figure exceeds 80 million USD. Showing solidarity with Moldova in challenging times is the basis of our approach, as exemplified in the pandemic period and also recently during the refugee flow caused by the war in the neighboring country. As being the country hosting the largest number of refugees in the world, Turkey has understood the pressure upon Moldova very well and shown solidarity through the humanitarian aids of Turkish Disaster and Emergency Management Presidency and Turkish Red Crescent Society. Dear participants, the establishment of the Turkey EBRD Donor Fund in 2018 was a turning point for further development of relations between Turkey and Moldova. As Turkey, we support the technical component of the projects financed by the EBRD with the Donor Fund. So far, we have provided a grant of 1.8 million euros for Moldova projects from the fund. We believe that these projects will contribute to the development of Moldova in areas including renewable energy, energy efficiency, and digitalization. We support the efforts of Moldovan authorities to diversify its energy resources and to reach a greener energy mix. As part of this workshop, we are keen to learn the results of the gender baseline assessment. These results will provide valuable guidance for the elimination of gender gap, which is a key element for a successful transition to green economy. The economic fields in which women are heavily involved, such as agriculture, are prone to negativities of climate change. Therefore, creation of equal opportunities for men and women in access to green finance, information, skills, and expertise is quite important. Turkey is ready to further support the green economy, gender equality, and women's empowerment in Moldova. Before giving end to my words, I would like to thank for the organization of these events and wish every success in the implementation of GEFF program. Thank you.
Thank you, Özlem, very much for putting a spotlight on the commitment and support Turkey has for green transformation and gender equality. Last year, in 2011, the EBRD's Green Economy Financing Facility Gender Team, with the support from the EBRD's Small and Medium Enterprise Finance and Development Team and the Women in Business Program, which is funded by Sweden, carried out an impressive amount of work collecting, analyzing data for the baseline assessment. The findings of which will now be presented by Ms. Chiara De Silvestro, GEFF Moldova Project Manager. I know that today, among our audience, are present individuals and business representatives who contributed their experience and time to this exercise. On behalf of the entire team, I would like to thank them for that and pass the word to Chiara.
Thank you, Alexandra, for introducing me. Today, so I'm going to show the baseline assessment result. Can we have the presentation? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of context and to describe this baseline assessment study and in particular the final recommendations. So to give you a little bit of context, the baseline assessment study have been implemented under the umbrella of the Green Economy Financing Facility in Moldova. This program has been developed by the EBRD, which is financing up to 20 million euro to participating financial institutions. At present, we have MAIB as participating financial institution. The objective of GEFF is to raise awareness of climate change mitigation and resilience technologies and to help Moldova in its path toward a green transition. In the framework of the GEFF, we have a gender component. Why do we have this gender component? GEFF has been implemented in many countries, and it has been noted that a few women are applying for financing. So the gender component aims at reducing the gender gap in accessing to finance and in improving the participation of women. Moldova is highly affected by climate change. Around the 60% of the population is concentrated in rural areas, and agriculture is a very important sector for the country. And given that agriculture is highly affected by climate change, this means that the whole population is highly impacted by this phenomena. Women vulnerability is quite high to climate change because of unequal access to productive opportunities, because of an unequal access to training and education, and societal marginalization. Moreover, Moldova is particularly facing some challenges. First of all, the geopolitical situation, which has brought to the country many hundreds thousand refugees, which have risen the energy prices and the interest rates. In this context, the preservation and generation of livelihoods is a very critical challenge, and it is crucial not only to mitigate the impacts of the crisis, but also to ensure a solid foundation for the recovery in the future. In this context, GEFF has the potential to increase the resilience of the country by investing in renewable sources that can improve the country independence from fossil fuels. This crisis has added up to another crisis already existing, which is the COVID-19, which also has an impact on the gender gap, because as we can see in the chart, it worsened the gap in the employment rate between men and women. So our study was based on this framework, and the objective, what we investigated actually, was the level of awareness of climate change, the impact that climate change is having on people's life, and the current knowledge of adaptation and mitigation techniques. What are the tools that we used? First of all, we developed a survey. Maybe some of you participated in the survey that we distributed. We also arranged the focus group discussions and interviews. We understood from this study that in general, the level of awareness is very good. So people is well aware of climate change issues. And moreover, people is also aware that climate change is caused by human activities. We can say that in general, women are more aware that this phenomena is caused by human activities. We also discovered that men are more aware than women when we talk about climate change technologies. And this can be due, for example, to the fact that more men make technical studies. On the other side, women, and in particular entrepreneurs, are more willing, more interested in attending to trainings. And we discovered from interviews and focus groups that this can be due to the fact that women are also do not have the access sometimes to trainings, while men have more access. So what are the barriers for women in business? First of all, a general lack of childcare services. This is a crucial barrier, and this worsened during the COVID-19 period. The consequences of climate change are perceived as a major impediment by women, and moreover, also society's norms and values on respective gender roles play is an important barrier. In terms of access to finance, we discovered that women are concerned about banks' requirements, and in particular, when it comes to collaterals, repayment flexibility, cost of capital. They feel that if they are not supported by their family or by their husband, they have difficulties in accessing finance. So having flexible or alternative collateral requirements is definitely of the utmost importance. As a conclusion, we can say that people is aware of climate change and is generally aware of the risks that climate change take within. And there is a direct relationship between gender equality, women empowerment, and climate change. Women are more vulnerable to climate change, but at the same time, they can be agents of change. Moreover, women are less informed and are more willing to participate in trainings. What can we recommend to overcome this situation? Well, as we understood, women entrepreneurs still face constraints and challenges when applying for loans. To overcome these issues, gender differences have to be recognized at PFI level, so at the local financing institution level, to uncover the importance of enhancing access to finance. Financial instruments should be more flexible in terms of cost of finance and collateral. And women have to be offered more trainings to overcome their fears and existing perceptions. Moreover, in our study, we also pointed out the need for more information, and this shows the need for a visibility strategy. And so visibility and communication strategies should be more gender sensitive in terms of language and visual elements. Of course, our recommendations also regards trainings. Trainings can be at local financing institution level, but also at potential client level. Well, lending to women entrepreneurs is still considered risky, as they lack of credit history and of proper financial records very often. So it is very important to improve gender sensitization at PFI level and to organize trainings to overcome these biases. Trainings are very important also at entrepreneurship level. So we would like to address, in particular, women in business with financial trainings, but also with trainings on climate change and on climate technologies that can help them to understand how to apply these technologies and how technologies can be useful to be more resilient to climate change. Establishing KPIs, it's also very interesting. We will see in this workshop how disaggregated data will be of the utmost importance. And moreover, women should be encouraged to participate actively and be represented in decision-making structures. So I thank you for your attention. I remind you the links where you can find more information about the GEFF program and about the gender component. And we will deliver this presentation. And moreover, we have also a video now.
Moldova is highly vulnerable to climate change. Weather patterns are unpredictable and have further increased food and energy prices against the macroeconomic background. All the more, Moldova is highly vulnerable to climate change. Weather patterns are unpredictable and have further increased food and energy prices against the macroeconomic background. All the more, climate risks widen the existing gender gap in access to finance, employment resources, and overall economic opportunities. Since most of the Moldovan population lives in rural areas and is reliant on the agricultural sector, which is subject to changing weather patterns, they are hard hit. Climate change has gender impacts on individuals' economic opportunities, but also people in lagging regions and with stranded skills are disproportionately affected. Women in many regards are particularly affected due to lower asset ownership, persistent norms and values with regards to women's labor force participation, as well as unfavorable inheritance laws. The spread of COVID-19 pandemic has worsened the situation as the gap between the employment rate of men and women widened. Even though they often face barriers in accessing finance to counter the effects of climate change, Moldovan women are agents of change, with higher awareness levels regarding climate phenomena and higher willingness to learn about adaptation and mitigation strategies. Financing green technologies in women-led businesses is a triple opportunity. It is a good business for financial institutions. It improves the competitiveness of enterprises and the economic opportunities of women entrepreneurs. The ecosystem can support them. Financial institutions can reflect women borrowers' priorities and needs by making their mechanisms more flexible, by applying risk-based pricing models, and by developing gender-responsive services. Access to information as online banking and online application processes and training to enhance women's financial literacy skills are key drivers to improve women's access to finance, involving women in all levels of decision-making, including in the design of adaptation and mitigation strategies and awareness-building activities. Working together towards a more inclusive economy, we can all help mitigate climate change, adapt to its effects, and make our economies greener. Visit our site.
Thank you very much, Chiara, for the presentation of the findings of this baseline assessment. I would like to thank the audience for their patience with the technical issue that occurred. Technology is still a mystery to many of us. I would like to ask our colleagues from the technical support to place the links from the last slide of the presentation to the chat function, as there was a request from our participants. Thank you for doing that. Now, returning back to the data and conclusions, which are drawn on the basis of the assessments, are at the core of developing viable and demand-driven support programs. Nothing beats a true story, cramming them the experiences of people involved in gender transition and their day-to-day activity. As Angela Sachs mentioned, EBRD has put an effort to implement a complex set of tools to support green transition in Moldova. Let me remind you about the EBRD Advice for Small Business, which facilitates access to know-how with co-financing of up to 75% of consultancy services value, as well as carrying out trainings and workshops to develop the capacity of entrepreneurs and the consultants alike. Since 2011, over 1,200 companies have already benefited of such support and therefore improved their performance and growth. Should you need consultancy services, please do not hesitate reaching out to EBRD. None could grow also without access to finance. Chiara mentioned these tools, and I will reiterate them. It is about the Women in Business program, which is complemented by a credit line managed via Prime Capital. Also, there is the EU for Business credit line, and that supports SMEs to develop through the DCFTA framework supported by the European Union. The latest, EBRD has launched the Green Economy Funding Facility credit line to improve accessibility to those green technologies that we are talking about today. Thus, addressing the challenges of local economy, considering all current regional crises, the EBRD puts an effort to use its tools so as its intervention brings the expected impact. But it's a process, and the energy of all of us is required. To talk about women's vulnerability and challenges caused by the climate change, as well as the ways of overcoming them, I would like to invite to a panel discussion Ms. Carmina Vicol, the CEO and of Prime Capital and President of American Chamber of Commerce in Moldova, Ms. Ludmila Negruță, the Deputy General Manager of Virim Impex Company, Vadim Kulea, Head of Business Banking Sales Department from Moldovan Agrarian Bank, Nadezhda Kojokar, Head of Social Services Statistics Division at the National Bureau of Statistics, and Ms. Teresa Nedler, apologies for if I misread that one, Principal Gender and Economic Inclusion from EBRD. I would like to address my first question to Ms. Vicol. Can you say, yes, thank you. Ms. Vicol, we learned from the baseline assessment that women are more vulnerable to climate change, but on the other side, they're also more concerned and willing to adopt and learn about mechanisms and solutions to face climate change crisis. From your perspective as the CEO of Prime Capital, what are the main aspects that make women more vulnerable to climate change risks?
Thank you, Alexandra. I would like to, first of all, to greet everyone and to say that for me it's a great honor to participate to this panel discussion, because we are raising a very important issue about what's happening nowadays. I mean, the climate change and especially how this affects the women in business. We are concerned about this because we as Prime Capital, we have special products for women in business. I mean, loans and financial lines that we have launched together with EBRD. And we are working with women particularly, and we know what are their needs and challenges. So with regard to climate change, yes, of course, we all know that climate changes affects all people and all type of businesses and business owners and managers, but addressing this to women, I just can say that indeed they are more vulnerable, first of all, because as was already mentioned in the study and also by Mrs. Angela Sachs, women, they have limited access to information. And if we talk about climate change and about solutions for energy efficiency, these things are related to very technical issues. And unfortunately, women have most, I would say, women. Of course, there are women that have very broad knowledge in technical and engineering, but I mean the most of women, they have limited technical knowledge. And for them, it's quite complicated, first of all, to understand what are the solutions. There are always many options and solutions, and they are very technical, and it's important to understand which one to choose, which one fits better to you, and to your business, and also to understand the financial part, in which term the investment that is necessary maybe to make would be recovered. So for this, all these issues, is necessary always to provide an assistance and the consultancy to women, so that they can understand and be aware about how they can solve all the problems that appears. And also I would say that they are always easily accepting all new changes, and as was mentioned, they could be the ones that would promote all the necessary changes that have to be made. Also, women, they have limited access to finance, and in order to implement certain technologies, it's necessary to have the resources to make the investment, and they also are lacking physical assets in order to pledge for the loan to be taken from banks or financial institutions. So yeah, I would speak a little bit about us as Prime Capital, as a non-banking institution that is providing loans for women in business, because we have special lines and products dedicated to women in business, and also we have some products for energy efficiency that we have launched with other partners, including with Swedish Development Agency. And from the studies that we have made, and from the analysis of the data, I have to say that if we take by numbers, so we have like 49% of women that have benefited of loans with the guarantee for energy efficiency. But as volume, this number is less, so it's about 40%. It means that women always take smaller loans and than men do. Also, women are quite limited in decision-making process, and in case the woman is the ultimate leader, okay, she can take a decision, but usually these are partners, and in this case, because we are talking about technical issues, always women had let's say the inferior place or word to say. That's why if they would have sufficient knowledge, they could always provide sufficient arguments in order to defend their position and to contribute to implementing of changes and necessary new technologies.
Thank you so much, Carmina, for sharing your perspective and the experience of supporting women entrepreneurs, and especially in addressing this climate-related challenges. I would now want to address Ms. Negrutsa with a question from her perspective of a leader and decision maker within Moldovan business environment. What are the specific climate challenges that your business is facing, and what are the solutions you think about applying in that regard? Людмила, can you hear us?
Да. Спасибо, Александра, за вопрос. Конечно, в контексте сегодняшней конференции очень много интересной информации, и учитывая те направления развития, которые предоставляет Европейский банк реконструкции и развития, то мы с удовольствием пытаемся и внедряем все новые технологии на нашем предприятии. Наша компания является фармацевтической компанией, дистрибьюторской компанией в которой внедрена система GMP, это требование законодательства Республики Молдова. И в контексте этого следует отметить, что есть определенные требования к помещениям склада, где мы храним медикаменты, и это обязало нас оснастить, соответственно, помещение склада вентиляционной системой с кондиционированием воздуха, которая поддерживает постоянство температуры и влажности в пределах необходимых для надлежащей работы. Это обеспечивает соблюдение требований стандартов GDP, внедренного на предприятие, как я уже сказала, и обеспечивает эффективную работу склада медикаментов в зависимости от изменений климатических условий в различный период времени года.
Thank you so much, Ludmila. To follow up on your answer, on your intervention, I would like to ask you to elaborate a little bit on how you financed such an upgrade or such a change to the climate control systems within the facility.
Да, мы реализовали проект с Европейским банком реконструкции и развития. В реализованном проекте в качестве отопления мы использовали промышленные кондиционеры с самым высоким классом эффективности 2А. Это позволило снизить потребление электроэнергии порядка 30%. Также установленная система вентиляции позволяет нам сэкономить в холодный период года до 70% энергии на нагрев воздуха в соответствующих складских помещениях. Немаловажный. Или также есть проблема обеспечения воды нашим предприятиям. В частности, качество воды, поступаемое на предприятие, негативно влияет на систему вентиляции при поддержании необходимой влажности. В системе вентиляции установлен парогенератор с системой фильтров. Так как парогенератор использует большое количество воды для испарения, фильтры необходимо часто менять. На данный момент избежать данной проблемы нет возможности. Предприятие использует воду из местной скважины, а не из городского водопровода. В ближайшей перспективе не ожидается, к сожалению, подключения предприятия к городской системе водоснабжения, и, соответственно, мы вынуждены ежемесячно менять фильтры для обеспечения бесперебойной работы парогенераторов.
Thank you so much, Ludmila, for sharing this experience you have had and your commitment to improving the use of resources, including the energy resources, becoming greener in your day-to-day practices. Now I'd like to go back to Ms. Vigol with a follow-up question. We've heard the experience of a pharmaceutical company on the Moldovan market. What is the experience of the agricultural sector in Moldova's population? Because that is an area you collaborate a lot with and have a very good understanding of from your entrepreneurial expertise.
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra. So in our portfolio, like about 20% of women are working in the agricultural sector. So we are addressing, and we always discuss with them in order to understand what are their problems. Of course, we all know that Moldova is facing from year to year or drought or too low temperatures or some other issues. And unfortunately, we have a lack of financial instruments and maybe insurance instruments in order to somehow assure that every farmer or every woman that is having its business in the agricultural sector can somehow assure that the losses will be minimized. So In this respect, it's very important to work with every client separately and to understand the type of business, and from our knowledge to consult and to suggest them what they can do in order to minimize all those risks, because those risks are quite diverse and their impact is really significant, especially nowadays with the pandemic, and also with the on the top we had the drought of 2020. I think a lot of our clients suffered, and they really had problems in already repaying the loans. So we worked with them, we rescheduled, and of course we offered them the possibility for next year already to recover the situation and to get better. But of course, it's necessary to implement, more complex measures. We, as only a financial company, we unfortunately cannot do everything. But this is important also to work at the government level. Also, other business entities, financial sector have to have a strategy in order to assure that the risk in agriculture are minimized and our clients do not suffer, and can develop their business, can expand it, and also can repay the loans.
Thank you so much, Carmina. With regard to the issue of building awareness and sharing information, I would like to address my next question to Mr. Kula. As head of business banking sales department of MAIB, what is the best way to inform women entrepreneurs about financial solutions from your expertise?
Hi, Alexandra. Hi, dear participants. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me to participate in this important event. Regarding your question, I think internet and social media are becoming a main source of information, especially for women. Posting adverts, short description of products and services could be a way to increase the women financial awareness. At the same time, I think special trainings implemented by our sales team through groups of women who wants to start some business ideas could be another solution. Sometimes discussing face-to-face is more effective than distance submitted information. Now we're working on training our staff in all our branches on the solutions and how to best explain them to women entrepreneurs. We try to develop explaining skills about how to make a business plan, how to calculate investment profitability, which kind of loans are more convenient for each project, and so on. I think organizing fairs, exhibitions in collaboration with the suppliers of technical solution could be an important step to build awareness. At MAIB, we have specially dedicated salespeople which are involved in participating in all these kinds of events to increase the women's understanding of businesses.
Thank you so much, Vadim, for sharing with us this important aspect of awareness raising methods and approach. Since collecting and analyzing data is crucial in measuring the success of programs like the one we're talking about today, the Green Economy Funding Facility, I would like to discuss the issue of sex disaggregated data and information by gender in relation to entrepreneurship and business. This is a major challenge not only for financial institutions, but also for policymakers. And to address this aspect, I would like to invite a true expert, the head of the Social Services Division from the National Bureau of Statistics, Ms. Nadezhda. Can you hear us, ma'am?
Bună ziua, sper că mă auziți. Mulțumesc foarte mult pentru invitație și oportunitatea de a împărtăși ceea ce realizează Biroul Național de Statistică la acest capitol. Vreau să menționez din start că statistica de gen este un domeniu foarte larg, transversal, care trece prin diferite domenii ale vieții sociale și economice. Tradițional, datele statistice la nivel individual și acolo unde este posibilă colectarea dezagregării pe sexe. Deci, tradițional, este disponibilă și se colectează mai mult partea socială. Trebuie să recunosc că este un domeniu mai puțin tradițional, schimbarea climatică și alte domenii pentru care noi încă întâmpinăm dificultăți, deoarece cercetările statistice din aceste domenii nu sunt focusate pe persoane, dar unitatea statistică este diferită. În acest sens și disponibilitatea de informații este mai redusă, fiind domenii noi atât pentru elaboratorii de politici, problematica să fie tot mai mult pusă pe agenda. De aceea, ca să consolidăm și îmbunătățim datele pe sectoarele date mai netradiționale, noi să fim foarte bucuroși să avem suportul instituțiilor, partenerilor de dezvoltare ca să îmbunătățim lucrurile la acest aspect. Dar, în general, Biroul Național de Statistică și-a focusat în ultimii ani eforturile pentru a îmbunătăți și a pune la dispoziția publicului diferite date statistice și în diferite produse. Deci, pe pagina oficială a BNS, statistica de gen are un compartiment separat, aparte. Deci, disponibilitatea sau diversitatea de produse diferă în funcție de necesitățile utilizatorilor noștri. Necesitățile diferă de la utilizatorii începători care preferă să le fie puse la dispoziție atât date cât și o analiză scurtă de interpretare, dat fiind faptul că pentru ei este un pic dificil, până la utilizatori foarte avansați care deja solicită acces la microdate. Deci, în funcție de aceasta, pentru că utilizatorii în cadrul sondajelor noastre de satisfacție menționează și BNS-ul își diversifică produsele, astfel încât obișnuim să publicăm în preajma zilele a femeilor și zile internaționale a femeilor și femeilor, 8 martie, deci un produs care se numește Portretul statistic al femeilor și bărbaților și care conține cele mai ultimele date disponibile. Este prezentată diferența, mari discrepanțe în cifre, în diverse domenii, deci sunt date obținute atât din cercetările realizate de BNS, cât și din diferite surse de date administrative care furnizează date către Biroul Național de Statistică. Totodată, în anul 2014 am creat și un compartiment separat în banca de date. Este cel mai preferat instrument de către utilizatorii noștri. Deci este un compartiment separat care conține indicatori din setul minim de indicatori recomandat de Divizia pentru Statistică a ONU în domeniul gender. Seriile de date sunt disponibile începând cu anul 2008. Se le diseminează deja însoțite de analiză. Sunt diferite publicații focusate pe problematica de gen, cum este violența împotriva femeilor, participarea femeilor și bărbaților în antreprenoriat sau note analitice privind utilizarea timpului de către femei și bărbați. În anul 2016, BNS a elaborat profilurile statistice ale femeilor și bărbaților, însoțite de 10 note analitice și 10 seturi de infografice. Aceste note s-au focusat pe 10 grupuri vulnerabile de femei, printre care femeile rome, femeile cu dizabilități, femeile din mediul rural, femeile cu HIV. În anul 2019 am lansat un alt studiu privind participarea femeilor în sectorul tehnologiilor și comunicațiilor, în care la fel se conțin date despre sectorul educației, ocuparea forței de muncă, condițiile de muncă în sectorul TIC, cercetare și dezvoltare, antreprenoriat, accesul și utilizarea tehnologiilor informaționale de către populație în general. Deci astea sunt doar câteva dintre produsele pe care le avem. În 2018 ne-am focusat deja pe produse mult mai moderne, interactive, și aici vorbim despre aplicația Gender Pulse. Ea este o aplicație conectată către banca de date, preia automat și este însoțită și de careva concluzii, interpretări care ajută utilizatorii simpli să interpreteze aceste date. Deci este o aplicație care conține infografici, care prezintă foarte interactiv și implică utilizatorul să acceseze dorește ca și indicator. Deci sunt 5 domenii acolo prezente. Puteți să accesați aplicația genderpulse.media și un alt instrument care ne permite să accesăm date la nivel cel mai dezagregat, la nivel de localitate, este aplicația de recensământ, deci recensământ.md, și acolo sunt rezultatele ultimului recensământ, deci datele disponibile la nivel de localitate și, evident, pe sexe. Acum, ca să ofer câteva constatări de bază legate cumva de tematica evenimentului de business și de acces la finanțe, deci sursa pe care noi o avem și datele disponibile vin din studiul realizat ultimul în anul 2018. Aceste studii le realizăm de regulă cu o periodicitate de 10 ani. Penultimul a fost realizat în anul 2009, următorul în 2018. Deci, conform acestui studiu, care a încercat să arate nu doar care este procentul femeilor implicate în business, dar s-a focusat foarte mult pe a obține informație calitativă despre problemele și barierele cu care se confruntă femeile și bărbații și dacă aceste probleme diferă foarte mult pentru femei și bărbați. Deci, în anul 2018, deja ponderea femeilor care dețin sau gestionează afaceri față de 2009 a crescut cu 6,4 puncte procentuale, constituit 33,9%. 9 fiind 27,5%, deci femeile sunt de 2 ori mai puține deținătoare gestionarea a întreprinderilor, deși femeile predomină în numărul populației în rândul populației economic active, este evident că există un potențial foarte mare aici de la ponderea femeilor care sunt implicate în antreprenoriat dacă o comparăm cu ponderea femeilor în general în populație. În general, femeile gestionează întreprinderi mult mai mici decât bărbații, deci ponderea femeilor care gestionează afaceri de 0,9 salariați este cu 8 puncte procentuale mai mare față de ponderea bărbaților. Cel mai des femeile gestionează întreprinderi din domeniul comerțului cu amănuntul, domeniul servicii și hoteluri și restaurante. Dacă ne referim la sursa principală pe care o utilizează atunci când își creează o afacere, atunci cea mai mare pondere în general aparține economiilor proprii ale antreprenorilor. 67 întreprinderi au indicat că și-au creat afacerile utilizând în mare parte economiile proprii. Dar o altă sursă importantă sunt și împrumuturile de la rude, de la prieteni și creditele bancare. Creditele bancare cu o pondere de 9,5%. Comparativ cu bărbații, întreprinderile gestionate de femei utilizează un pic mai des economiile proprii, 5,5 comparativ cu 66,9. În schimb, întreprinderile gestionate de bărbați într-o măsură mai mare utilizează, de exemplu, remitențele și investițiile. Trebuie să menționez că femeile și bărbații, conform studiului nostru, au prezentat ponderi egale sau ale utilizării creditelor bancare în calitate de sursă principală pentru lansarea afacerii, pentru că în calitate de sursă, deci foarte rar când doar o singură sursă de finanțare este suficientă pentru lansarea afacerii, de regulă mai mult de una, două surse sunt utilizate. La etapa realizării studiului nostru, doar 13% din întreprinderi apelase la credite și 14,8% în cazul bărbaților, comparativ cu 9,4% în cazul femeilor. Dacă ne referim la cele care au menționat că nu au apelat la un credit, atunci motivul principal pe care majoritatea sau 25,3% l-au menționat au mari și cerințele de garanție prea mari. Deci, preponderent, această problemă privind dobânzile mari a fost menționată de către întreprinderile micro cu 0,9 salariați. Și refuzul creditării a fost menționat de către întreprinderi, deci în cazul lor nu a fost acceptată cererea. Ei au menționat cauza principală fiind situația financiară a întreprinderii, 38,2%, lipsa gajului au menționat 28,3% și valoarea insuficientă a garanției 16,4%. Întreprinderile gestionate de femei, însă într-o măsură mai mare au menționat că au oferit ca și garanții bunurile lor personale, 43,3%, comparativ cu 33,7% în cazul bărbaților. Cam atât pe scurt, sper că nu v-am încărcat foarte mult cu aceste cifre. În orice caz, rezultatele sunt publice, sunt disponibile pe pagina oficială a BNS. Tot ce ține de statistica gender este disponibil la rubrica Statistica gender pe pagina oficială www.statistica.media.
Thank you so much, Nadezhda. This is a wealth of information, so well listed out, and as always, figures speak. I hope that everyone who's interested did note those details that Nadezhda provided in order to access the information and reevaluate it for themselves. And I would now like to return back to Mr. Kula and ask him to share what are the main challenges from MAIP's perspective in offering that access to green efficiency solutions.
Women entrepreneurs, as we learned also from the research, have often limited or no access to property collateral to get a loan, which makes it very challenging for a bank to lend. We at MAIP are searching continuously for different alternatives to solve this issue. For example, we developed a partnership with the ODIN, Organization for Small and Medium Enterprises Sector Development, which offers a financial guarantee until 5 million lei for some loan projects. The offered guarantee amount depends on the number of other pledges and the loan amount. Recently, we've signed another partnership with the US International Development Finance Corporation, DPC, for receiving similar financial guarantees for requested loans by local businesses owned by women, and not only, but it's needed some time to promote this option through businesswomen. Women are not aware of financial solutions, as often don't have access to information on available financial solutions. That's bringing to them some dose of distrust in themselves. But as we all understand, to achieve success in business is very important to be trustfully in your powers. In these conditions, one of our main mission is to bring information to women about all options to finance a business, about risks involved in not enough planning, and about positive impact in case of successful business project. Green solutions have to be encouraged with all means in order to increase businesses' resilience in spite of the spike of energy prices.
Thank you so much, Vadim, for sharing this aspect from the bank's perspective. And now I would like to invite Teresa our principal for economic and gender inclusion, to share with us about the impact that the war in Ukraine has on Moldova, how the related events are going to affect the green economy financing facilities objectives, and which measures the EBRD is taking to strengthen the resiliency of Moldova.
Thank you very much, Alexandra, and really fascinating to hear from the colleagues on the panel about their experiences with green finance and gender equality in Moldova. And it's probably not a surprise that when we speak about the economic situation in Moldova, we need to speak about the war in Ukraine, which is having a destabilizing effect on the Moldovan economy, the war, but also the international sanctions on Russia and Belarus, which are affecting Moldovan businesses, SMEs, and micro enterprises through multiple channels. For instance, there's a disruption in the logistics infrastructure. In the past, the seaports in Ukraine, Odessa, Kronomorsk, Ilychevsk, they were all important logistic points for the supply chains and for trade to overseas destinations from Moldova. Now, with this access being reduced, there are still options, for instance, via Romania, but they are further away and they increase the costs of transportation, which are already high as a result of the increased energy prices, as just heard. So the green technologies, as they are promoted under the GEFF, they can actually help along the supply chain in the logistics sector to improve the energy efficiency of transport, cooling, storage, and in that way help businesses address the challenges arising from this disruption in the logistics infrastructure. Another example of how businesses in Moldova are affected by the war is the disruption of trade and supply chains. This particularly affects sectors such as agriculture and food processing, which, as we've heard by Mrs. Wichkol as well, is a major source of GDP and actually also a major source of employment for women in Moldova. Businesses in agriculture and food processing are affected, for instance, by the fertilizer crisis, by the shortages of imports, but also by a decline in exports of their goods, such as fruits and berries, which used to be nearly entirely directed to the Russian Federation before the outbreak of the war. There's also the construction industry, which used to import a lot of metal from Ukraine. And so when we're looking at these business challenges, green technologies, green building technologies, energy saving measures, such as the ones promoted under the GEFF program, can really help businesses better manage their production costs and thus balance out some of these negative economic impacts of the crisis from the trade and supply chain disruptions. Lastly, there's of course the inflow of refugees into Moldova. And as of yesterday, the UNHCR has reported that nearly 500,000 individuals have arrived in Moldova from Ukraine, and about 20% of them are remaining in the country. And we also know that women and children make up a majority of those arrivals. With this inflow of people come challenges, but also opportunities, especially for businesses that employ green technologies. For instance, green skills development will be a key channel to sustainably integrate arrivals from Ukraine into the Moldovan labor market. This means companies that employ green technologies have access to a wider talent pool for those jobs that they need people to operate or maintain their green technologies. There's also an opportunity for businesses that work with green technologies in the housing sector, for instance, using green technologies to rehabilitate the old building stock in the country to increase the supply of accommodation and housing for Ukrainians, but also, and I think this is the most important point to keep in mind, this is not only good for the refugees, this is also good for the Moldovan population, which has faced some of these difficulties for many years, actually, and some of these challenges that are not new, but they can now be addressed in a more targeted and they will be addressed in a more effective manner. We at the EBRD, we've already launched a 2 billion euro support program for Ukraine and the neighboring countries, including Moldova. And we are planning to do even more going forward. our goal really is that the recovery from this war and the crisis will make our economies greener and more inclusive, so that we can build on everyone's contributions, men and women, as employees and business leaders to rebuild our economies. The gender responsive GEFF program in Moldova, I think, is really a great step into this direction. And I hope to see many women-led businesses take up the opportunities that it offers to them, whether that is to address climate change, but also to address the impacts of the war on Ukraine for their businesses.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Teresa, for this snapshot of the regional situation and for those clear steps that have been already taken and which are still being planned to alleviate the consequences. I also would like to thank every participant on this panel for sharing their experience, for sharing their vision of the situation, and for sharing their view of the path to take further for solving the issues which we all have to rise to in the light of the climate changes and the regional crisis. Now, while checking out the question and answers box, I did not see any questions coming from the audience. If none of those have been cooked by now, I would suggest that the participants, our audience, who might have questions later after today's event in terms of the available support, or any questions to any of the participants we have gathered for today's workshop, please do address them to the EBRD in Moldova, and we will be happy to provide you with the answers. Now, since we are drawing to a conclusion of today's workshop, I would like to pass the floor to Ms. Sunita Pitamber, our Associate Director for Gender Economic Inclusion at the EBRD. Sunita?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alexandra. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we do.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for this wonderful discussion, and I've been listening very carefully. I think, as the last speaker said, this is a very important time for us to discuss access to finance, especially in the context of the war in Ukraine and the countries neighboring Ukraine and the affected countries as well. Dear participants and partners and donors, thank you for your wonderful participation in this workshop. You have all contributed very effectively, and with the different views, it has been quite interesting to draw lessons learned for us to take forward. I would like to thank, of course, first of all, Angela Sachs, head of our office in Moldova, for her pertinent introductions and outlining the current situation in Moldova as well. I would also like to thank Özlem Okuyucu, Deputy Chief of Mission, Embassy of Turkey, for her remarks and support in funding the facility at this event also. Thank you also to our donors, the Green Climate Fund and the government of Sweden, as always, for their generous support of this program, and always wonderful to have this collaboration with you. Finally, thank you to our wonderful partner financial institutions, MAIB, with whom we jointly implemented the facility, and our esteemed panelists and stakeholder guests for their wonderful discussions. As you have seen from the different speakers, the work of the facility is very innovative and very relevant, as I mentioned in the beginning, in the context of the current situation as we are all experiencing. The EBRD, as you know, is a very strong private sector focused institution, and it has gained extensive experience in promoting policy dialogue in the countries where we work. And we also have had a significant role to play in countering negative dynamics of climate change and promoting the opportunities that the green transition holds for women and women-led businesses. I mean, just to give you an example, last week we were at this MDB's Global Gender Summit, where we came together with all the other MDBs to also showcase our EBRD lesson learned in bringing in gender equality and climate change nexus. So based on our experience and globally, we know that companies that perform well on sustainability and gender diversity return greater profits. And we also know companies with more diversity on their boardrooms show better performance on developing policies and methods to address climate change risks. So in that context, the Green Economy Financing Facility is one of the EBRD's green flagship programs, which we have also been able to implement in almost 10 countries by now, with quite a huge success in addressing the gender responsive approach in green finance. In fact, similar events to the one we are having today will also be held in Egypt quite soon in the next few months. So really it has been an experience, lots of lessons learned for us and our teams, and we're actually been able to bring in the different regional contexts and the different challenges to showcase how gender mainstreaming can be a very important entry point for green finance in most contexts. We are also very delighted to present the results of the baseline assessment today and discuss the implications for the ecosystem. Again, these were very clear that where we have been able to identify key gender gaps in green finance, going forward, these are going to be pertinent for the financial institutions to take forward and understand how we can help them to bring in more women into the program. We have heard very quickly, just to summarize, we have heard that and learned that in Moldova, as part of the green transition, women are agents of change. They are climate aware business leaders and consumers, a very important market for green finance products. The structural position of women manifested in lower ownership of assets and a high care burden results in specific barriers for them to realize their full economic potential. Both women and men are critically aware of the challenges climate change poses to businesses, but it seems that women on the average assess their knowledge about climate change and consequences higher than men. Again, a very important point to understand, because this helps us to also learn what this means for the female entrepreneurs when we talk about green finance. We have also learned that while both women and men are interested in increasing their knowledge on green technologies, women prefer to receive trainings in an online format. This is again a very important takeaway if we are trying to deepen our access to more and more into the female segment as green finance clients. Last but not least, most participants, but women in particular, expressed interest in enhanced trainings on financial issues and access to information in order to jointly tackle the climate crisis by investing in green technologies. We have also heard that the war on Ukraine has major destabilizing effects upon Moldova's economy. We've heard this several times with the different speakers and in different contexts. So this is clearly a very important point to take forward, to see how this external shocks to our regions, to the economies, will affect the economies. So this is quite an important area that we have to understand and maybe take forward in our lessons learned, where we can anticipate any shocks, climate shocks especially, and of course the current situation of the war in Ukraine. Again, and support, in addition, this support will also, our GEFF support will also allow entrepreneurs to preserve their organizational capital, the know-how, the need to create systems for sustainable production, and combine human skills and green technologies. So as partners, as together, all of us here in this session, I am really pleased to be working with all of you. And as EBRD, we jointly collaborate in different products. And this is hopefully a very successful program and a great network in Moldova that we will work with and ensure equal access to finance for green technologies with a gender lens. Thank you, everyone, and over to you, Alexandra. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunita, for such a thorough summary of our today's event. As mentioned in your last lines, GEFF Moldova will carry on its activity, and I would like to address the audience now to keep an eye on all the communication that we will be posting on our social media, informing you about the upcoming training events, about awareness raising events, and any opportunity might be announced for enhancing women's capacity and confidence in making green investments. Thank you everyone who attended today, and have the great rest of the day.